Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
And we are live. So welcome to A Coffee with Karen, a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. So each week, my guests tend to be around the holistic health in some way arena, whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual perspective, or in most cases, actually, a sort of combination of any of those three. So I'm your host, Karen Roberts. I suppose I do focus on the mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. I'm a holistic transformation coach, so I do help people that are in the health and wellness arena build their business online using social media without being a salesy weirdo. So how to attract and actually convert prospects into buyers. My love of the woo-woo side is definitely getting more and more. I do come from more of a, should I say scientific background, maybe, but very physical. I'm definitely moving into the woo-woo arena. My special quantum healing device definitely is a combo of science meets woo-woo. So my special guest today, well, I think it does really incorporate all three, maybe more on the mental, the mindset perspective. So I will let you actually introduce yourself to the audience. So can you share with the audience a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share a little bit of your story, Karen?
I sure can. So I'm another Karen, but not that Karen. My name is Karen Dean. I am in a beautiful little community in Nova Scotia, Canada. So the other side of the water from you. Mm-hmm. And I'm a resilience expert. I'm a motivational speaker. I like to say I'm a fierce leader. I've also been a best-selling author. I'm a mentor, a mom, a survivor, an advocate, a limit pusher. And my mission is to help mostly women, but everybody build their resilience and realize that they actually have resilience, because it sometimes seems like people think they don't have it, but it's not a case of we have it or we don't. It is we all have it. We just have to figure out how to channel it in the healthiest way and to realize that everything we need, to get through any of the tough times in our lives, we all have inside of us. We just need to know how to use it and how to channel it. So my story is a really long one. I say that I'm a self-made resilience expert because I've been dealing with really tough situations for most of my life, from toxic family relationships to 2 abusive marriages. One of them, my kids were being abused, which was a whole different challenge. And I've gone through my own health issues. 2 of my children have had serious and life-threatening health issues. So it seems like most of the things that could challenge my resilience have happened in my life. I am hoping they're over now. But I decided that it was given to me so that I could help others. And that's what I'm trying to do now, is help others build their resilience so they know they can get through the tough times and still have an incredible life, because I do have such an incredible life and I'm so grateful for it.
Wow. I mean, I find it really interesting that when you hear stories like that, where people seem to have gone through like so much, it's like, how can you still come out the other end with such a positive attitude? Whereas, you hear of somebody else that's, I don't know, complaining every day about things that really do not seem very significant. But obviously to them, that is major. And then you hear somebody like yourself that has been through incredible horrors. It's like, how did you find, was it a deliberate, conscious decision, or was it just something that you naturally, fought for and realized what you'd done after the event?
A little bit of both. the time that I can remember really channeling my resilience and going against that, oh, poor me, pity party thing was when my son, who is now 21, but when he was 8 weeks old, a team of doctors told me that he would probably never be able to walk or talk because he had been born with a permanent brain injury. And of course, I believed them. And I went home from the hospital that day and I cried and I did a bunch of research on other kids that had the same thing he had and read all the horror stories, and it was horrible. And I was like, I can't have a kid that's like these stories that I'm reading. And I literally sat there holding him in my arms, and my little girl, who was 3 at the time, was running around and playing. And I said out loud, that's not going to be my kid. And then I just went on a mission to try to find every bit of professional help I could find for him. I didn't take no for an answer. Every doctor I went to, I said, is there somebody else that could help us? Could you please refer us? And if it didn't fit, then we moved on. But I asked for all of the help that I could find. And 5 years later, he walked onto the school bus like every other kid. He's never had any help in school. He's reprogrammed his brain. Like, his brain still is all kinds of messed up in there, but he's reprogrammed it to use the parts that he has to compensate for the parts that he doesn't have. And it's incredible. And he's such a fighter because of it, because he used to say, you know, when he was trying to learn how to talk and how to walk, and his favorite word was can't. And I used to say, dude, there's no such thing as I can't. There's only I don't want to. And that got him through that. And fast forward to June of 2020, he was 19 years old. He went to the hospital by himself for the first time in his life and was told that he had cancer.
Ugh.
A rare and aggressive form of lymphoma. And he was by himself. Like I said, I'm home because of COVID restrictions. I wasn't allowed to go to the hospital with him. And he handled it like a champion. It was unreal, the attitude that he had through the whole cancer battle. And I still say it's because when he was little, I told him there's no such thing as I can't. There's only I don't want to, on repeat. Like I said it to him all the time. And he did not have 1 ounce of fear that he showed, at least through his whole cancer battle. And he came through it better than anyone I've ever known to go through chemotherapy and radiation. He had hardly any side effects.
Wow.
So mindset is everything.
Absolutely. I mean,
And
it's
the words we
how
tell ourselves.
Yeah, it's how you talk to yourselves. And isn't it weird then? It's almost like what you guys went through when he was younger was setting him up to be able to deal with what happened later. Maybe if you hadn't have gone through that hardship and you hadn't trained him in that way from a mindset point of view, he may not have had, because look, we all in general tend to, you know, I try not to, but a lot of people will just give their power away to somebody that is in a white coat. And then they take on board that decision. And it sounds like you just made a decision to not accept that diagnosis, because there's, I believe, as well as you, is that there's always another way. And so you did not give up on fighting for your child. And wow, what an inspiration then that he's here and thriving, right?
It is. And I saw a lot of things in my time taking him to hospitals. And I'm sure there are a lot of parents who listen to this podcast, but it's so important to not have that intimidation of doctors. They're just people, just like us. Ask the questions. And if they don't explain it properly or don't explain it in a way you understand it, then ask for them to explain it in a different way. I actually kind of fired one of my doctors and got a different neurologist because he spoke down to me. He started every sentence with, "This might be hard for you to understand, but," and I went, So I asked for a different neurologist, and she was incredible. And So it's about asking the questions, it's about believing in yourself, and it's about helping that child, like believing that you have the ability to help, that you don't just depend on those professionals. Because I sat in, physiotherapy, for example. So many parents sat in the waiting room and didn't even know what their child was doing in there. So how do you do it at home? And I think that's part of why my son did so well, is because I was in there crawling around on the floor with him. I was seeing everything they did, and then I was taking him home and doing it with him at home. Because if you only go to an appointment every week or 2 weeks, and they're not doing it at home, they're not going to improve. And I think that goes for everything. It goes for even, so-called normal kids in school. Talk to them about what they're doing at school. Help them with what they're doing at school. It's not just the job of teachers to teach our kids. It's our job as well. And I think that's really powerful in helping your kids become resilient and learning the skills they need to get into life successfully.
Yeah. I mean, you said quite early on about with the mindset stuff, all the time. You kept saying it. I mean, we all know, really, or maybe not, but the only way we truly learn something and really understand it is through spaced repetition, the spaced repetition of a new idea. So the way that you said right at the beginning that you were constantly telling him, there's no such thing as I can't. It wasn't a one time. You didn't just say that once, right? And he didn't just take it on and then that's it. And then he was resilient. You consistently did it again and again. And like you say, it's almost like everybody's waiting. We live in such a instant gratification era. So people want to be able to go to a doctor with an ailment and get a tablet to fix the problem.
Right.
Really? Is that going to happen? So what you've done is, if somebody's going to have physical therapy and they're only going to do it once a week, they're not going to see the progress that if you were doing it day in, day out. Okay, you might, for certain things, you might need specific rest days, but in general, it needs to be done consistently. So I think that is massive advice to anybody that is going through anything like that, to not just rely on what they're doing when they're in that physical therapy, but to have an understanding yourself as to what they're doing, why they're doing it, and how you can help them.
Yes.
But why do you think, what was different about you? Where did this come from? Why did you have that natural or that instinct, was it, or intuitive understanding of this? Where did this come from?
I think it was just growing up. I was the only girl with two brothers, and I really had to fight to stand up for myself. And I never really felt like I fit in any of my groups in school. I was kind of friends with this group one week and friends with this group another week, and I just always seemed to be fighting for something. And then when I had kids, I thought my job is to be the best mom I can possibly be. And that's why I thought, you know what? I have to give this boy the best life he can have. And whatever I can do to help, that's what I'm going to do. And I didn't want any of my kids to feel like I felt, which was like a failure a lot of the time. Like nobody loved me, like nobody supported me. And a lot of that was my own inner dialogue, but proof, none of my family are in my life anymore because of all of those things. So I think I just had that feeling like, you know what, this is my job, to be the best mom I can be and give this child the best life he can have. And that was part of it, was to help him be as physically able as he could possibly be.
Wow. I mean, it's strange that it does seem to be, the more struggles that you go through. Yeah. I mean, the old saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, right? However, there is a flip side to that not everybody does that, and they can. I don't like to use the word victim because it's just got such a negative connotation, but that whole victim mentality, again, it's a natural human response,
It is.
I think not everybody necessarily, like you say, it's not, are you born with that strength? Or again, is it maybe something happened in your younger life that you did fight for it? And so then that's been the turning point. Every time you come, that's your thing. Whereas other people, when a child, say, and did have that poor me mentality, that became the habitual pattern of responding to struggle. So it's not their fault. It could have been from when we are children.
Mm-hmm.
And so some people will have that fight instinct, and others will have the poor me. Plus, of course, in different situations, they might have got more attention for doing the poor me. So then that clicks in their brain to keep doing it. But because maybe you didn't get that, you've had to fight. And then that's been that. It's just so fascinating to see how some people do and some people don't. But I suppose the real thing is it's nobody's fault. It's learnt reactions, and people can do something about it. Like you say, resilience is something that you're going to learn. So how would you teach somebody that maybe has been going through these kind of things? How would you teach them to be resilient if that hasn't been their natural response pattern?
Well, to back up a little bit, studies have shown that we learn all of these inner voice things in the first 7 years of our lives. So before we even know that we can form thoughts, people are influencing our thoughts. So the things we hear in those early years really determine the voice that's in our head in our later years. So I think channeling our resilience is about reprogramming that voice in our head. Because when you think about it, who do you listen to more than anybody else? What voice do you hear more than anyone else? You hear your own.
Yeah.
So if you're always hearing, I can't, then you can't. If you're always hearing, I'm not good enough, then you won't be good enough. So you have to reprogram that thought in your head. You have to reprogram that voice in your head. And that's what I teach people to do. And again, it's about the repetition. It's about daily practices. It's about consciously thinking about our reactions to things. So 95% of what we do is unconscious, subconscious, like breathing, digesting food, all the things. They just happen. And our thoughts work the same way. So it's about reprogramming those thoughts to be different. So like my son with the I can't. Once I told him enough times he could, he did. So you have to tell yourself, you have to be your own biggest cheerleader. You can't wait for other people to validate you. You have to do it yourself. I still struggle with it. I'm not an expert. And we all have hard days where we go back to that poor me mentality. But it's about being able to pull yourself back out of that. So I always say you can have bad minutes, you can have bad hours, but I always try not to have a bad day.
Right.
Because
just
you can't
stay there.
I always tell my kids, you can't live there. You can get mad, you can get upset, you can get cranky, you can be disappointed, you can feel guilty, shameful, whatever the emotion is, you just can't live there. Right. And we all need to practice that. And I give people, I kind of have 7 tools that I try to teach people to be more resilient. And the first one is so easy that we don't even think about it, is to breathe. Because when we get bad news, when we get something that upsets us, we normally stop breathing. We hold our breath. And then we react from the place of holding our breath, where our brain isn't getting enough oxygen, where we're not even thinking about what we're saying. And we usually don't react in the most healthy way. So when I found out that my ex-husband had been abusing my daughter, I took some deep breaths before I responded, because I know I wouldn't have reacted in a healthy way if I had have reacted right as soon as the words came out of his mouth. So I took some deep breaths, and then I dealt with it in a healthy way. And I dealt with it in a way that got me and my kids to the amazing life that we have now. So that's the first thing. Just think about breathing. Don't think about whatever just happened. Just think, I got to breathe. And I always say, like, deep breaths where you feel like you gained some weight when you breathe in and you feel like you got skinnier when you breathe out. Like those kind of really big, deep breaths. That's step one.
Perfect.
When anything happens that you find challenging, because we're all going to have them.
Yeah, well, it's a natural response. It's all down to that fight or flight response, which seems to come up with every single person that I speak to. It's always to do with that, cortisol in the body, our natural reaction. Yeah, my natural reaction would be to want to kill him. It's not going to be a healthy reaction. So again, all these like old wives' tales, quotes like, take 10 deep breaths, go walk away. They've got so much, there's just so much truth in them, because it is only when that fight or flight response needs to be eliminated, and then we can think a little bit clearer and not have that kind of reaction. But it's again, that's got to come from practice, because I would suggest that a lot of people would instantly want to do a lot of harm there, but then no one wins in the end, right? I mean, it's pretty massive.
Oh, sorry, my dog.
That's okay.
The beauty of working from home.
Well, there you go. But I mean, where do you think things have changed, say, in the last 10, 20 years? People talk about, the millennials and, where is their resilience gone? What do you think's happened in the last 10, 20 years, where do you think things have changed I know we're in completely different countries, but do you think that here that, children in general just don't have the same resilience as maybe we did years before?
I think so. And I did work at our local high school for 5 years with special needs kids and with behavioral challenged kids. And I saw it, because I think it's a whole generation of helicopter parenting. We don't let our kids fail anymore. We don't want them to fail. We want to protect them from hurt, which is great. But I like to say, we're not raising children, we're raising adults. And as adults, like, things are going to happen. Things are going to be hard. You need to know how to deal with those from a young age. And thank goodness my kids are incredibly strong and resilient, because we've been through so much, and I didn't hide it from them. I gave them age appropriate information. And I always said, you know what, this is happening. Things are going to be really hard for a little while, but then they're going to be good. Like, we're going to get through this, and life is going to be good. So it's not about sheltering them from the pain or the struggle. It's about showing them how to get through it, because they're going to need that when they're adults. And I think we've had a whole generation of people who just didn't want their kids to get hurt and didn't want their kids to fail. And Sarah Blakely, who's the founder of Spanx, she tells the story of how her father would sit down at the dinner table and say, "What did you fail at today?" And if you hadn't failed, he was disappointed, because he wanted to teach his kids how to deal with failure, and that failure is inevitable. We are going to fail. Right. I just did a keynote for high school students on the weekend, and that's what I started with. I said, you know what? The things that are going to make you stronger in life, you are going to fail at. And you're going to fail a few times, or maybe 10 or 20 or 30 times before you get this right. But that's just life, because failures in life are opportunities to learn.
Yeah. I mean, that is the learning process, isn't it? And I think it's actually more dangerous if you don't have those failures, because when you do have a failure, it's going to come big and hard. And then are you going to be able to cope with it? So yes, I would agree. It's way back when they stopped, competition in school, like with sports, everyone's a winner. Like why? Stop wrapping your kids up in cotton wool. They've got to be able to deal with, not being the best at everything. It's
Because
I
we're
wonder
not.
why.
I don't
Why?
know how it happened, but you know what? There's some things I'm really good at, and there's some things I'm really bad at. And you have to realize that, and you have to know what your strengths are. You need to work within your strengths, and you need to ask for help for the things that you're not so good at. And that's just life.
Yeah, that's the truth of it. There's plenty of things I know nothing about. Know your strengths and then outsource.
Yes, totally.
But so I suppose it must seem a little bit more difficult then for these children that haven't learned, maybe as we did as children, learn, failure and having to deal with it. So have you noticed when with your own work that it is a little bit more challenging or takes longer to work with those sort of people that haven't experienced that?
Yes, for sure. And I think, the more years that we've heard those negative voices from other people that stay in our own heads, it's harder to reprogram them. So it took me until I was 45 years old to realize that the people who were supposed to love me and support me were actually holding me down and holding me back and keeping me small. So I had to remove them from my life. And those were my parents and my two brothers. Because every time I was with them, I left feeling defeated. I left feeling small. I left feeling like they didn't love me, like they weren't going to support me, because every idea I had was, who do you think you are? Or you can't do that. Well, since then, I've gone on to become a best-selling author. And I just published another book on the weekend it came out. So, and I'm doing what I love. I am on podcasts. I am doing keynote speeches. Those are things they told me I could never do.
Awesome.
And so it's about setting boundaries. And, I'm the extreme where I actually totally remove them from my life. But sometimes it's just about keeping distant.
Yeah.
And keeping information, like don't share what you're doing. Just kind of have the basic conversations. Don't tell them every little thing that you're working on if they're going to put you down for it. So there's varying levels of what those boundaries can be, but it's so important to set the boundaries of your own time, of your own energy, not just with the people you hang out with in person, but online as well. So who are you following on social media? Are they building you up, or are they putting people down and saying negative things all the time? And then that's the brain that you're in all the time.
There you go.
Make sure you're following positive people online. Absolutely. And in person.
Yeah, listen to how I do sort of, I listen to how other people speak about other people.
Mm-hmm.
And you can tell a lot from that, right? So for some people, it may be that they can't completely cut them off, but you know what? Just don't go as often.
Right.
Don't stay so long.
Yeah, and just change the conversation. And don't be afraid to say, I don't like that you talk to me like that. It may not go over great, but again, you might have to repeat it a lot of times, but you can say, you know what? That doesn't make me feel good when you say things like that to me. And I tried all those things and it didn't work. So I had to remove them. But you have to stand up for yourself, and you have to give people will treat you how you let them treat you. Mm. So you need to tell them how they're allowed to treat you. Mm. And that is hard at a young age. And like I said, it took me till I was 45 to figure it out, but I figured it out. And I just said, you know what? I can't do this anymore. I can't have people in my life who don't believe in me, who don't want me to succeed. And I think we all have those people that have tried to bring us down, and we have to make those hard choices to change our circle. They say you are like the 5 people you spend your most time with. So who are the 5 people? And that's online and in person. Who are the 5 people that you spend the most time with? And are they building you up? Are they helping you succeed? The other thing I like to say is I never want to be the smartest person in a room. So hang out with the people who have, if you are trying to have success in business, in your job, whatever it is, hang out with people who have already reached that level of success or somewhere above where you are. They will inspire you. Find mentors. They will help you. People want to help. So,
Absolutely.
Never be the smartest person in a room. If you're, then you're not learning, because
you're not going to grow.
No, exactly.
Yes, well, there you go. We all need to be lifted up. I mean, I 100% believe that it's all about how we feel. So it's very easy to gauge it, isn't it? When you leave that person,
yes.
How are you feeling? Are you feeling drained? Have they sucked the energy out of you? And look, I've been there, and I've allowed it to go on for many years. These energy vampires, they can suck the living daylights out of you. You can think you can change them. It's not your job. It's not your job. So yeah, everything is about how you feel, because that's what it is, isn't it? We are energy beings having a physical experience. It's all down to our frequency. And when we're feeling low, we're only vibrating in a low frequency. Nothing good ever comes from that. So we need to find a way to raise our frequency. So how do you work with people with, or who do, what sort of people are sort of coming to you for help with resilience?
I get a little bit of it, mostly women, because that's my target audience, but a lot of moms, a lot of business women who just kind of want to get to the next level, but are feeling held back. And, we realize through the process that we're probably holding ourselves back, because we're not making the choices to get ourselves further in whatever it is. So I get women from a lot of different backgrounds, but a lot of them have kind of lived things like I've lived. And really at the end of the day, they're women who just want more. They just want more. They just get to a point where they're like, this is not the life I thought I was going to be living. How do I get past it? And it starts with ourselves. It starts with building ourselves up.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's, again, God, I'm going to come out of quotes all day today, but things pop in my mind. Like, you cannot give from an empty cup. It's got to start with us. And if we're being constantly drained of everything, how can we give?
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, think, feel, act. I mean, I think it's major, and it is always ourselves that are in our own way. We've just got to find a way of getting out of our own way. I know that myself.
Yes.
It's again, we can know this stuff, really, right? It doesn't mean that we are perfect either. It's all about the journey. And like you say, when, we can, I feel like I've been a student of this for many years, and I've still not quite mastered it, but because it can be easy to resort back to past habit patterns, which again is why it's so important that, it's never from hearing this the one time. It's never from saying to yourself, I can do it the one time. It is going back to that repeated, got to repeat, spaced repetition to actually have that change. Because otherwise, I mean, I think, what do they say? 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day.
Oh, yes.
Like 90% of them are the same thoughts from yesterday. So we are on autopilot. We think we're in control. We're not. Our subconscious is actually in control. So if we want something different to what we're already getting, we've got to change who we are.
Yes.
First, and how we think and feel. And those thoughts cause feelings. Those feelings cause more thoughts. Those thoughts cause more feelings. We can get caught up in a story.
Yeah.
So it's so important to have, just repeat. Love that. So tell us about the book that you've, so 2 books, you've just released another one, but can you tell us a little bit more about the first book you published?
So the first book is called We Are Unbreakable. And I published it while my son was in the middle of his chemotherapy. It was my distraction. It was 41 days from idea to published, which I don't know if I could do that again, but it was a lot. And it's my story of 2020 and then 21 other women's stories, because it's from Nova Scotia, where I'm from, because we had a lot of kind of crazy things happen in 2020 beyond COVID, which threw everybody off the rails. But just over a month after COVID started, we became the proud title owners of the worst mass shooting in Canadian history. And if anybody knows Canada, we're a friendly bunch. And especially in Nova Scotia, we don't lock our doors. We know everybody. You trust people. And this man drove around all over the province, just randomly shooting people. And I lost a dear friend in that tragedy. So there were 22 victims plus an unborn child. One of the victims was pregnant. So we had that tragedy. We also had a couple of other tragedies within our military. And it just seemed like there was one thing after another in our tiny little province that affected so many people. So I wanted to share the stories of how we women got through this. And the stories are so inspiring about, I got teachers, I got farm women, I got people from as many different backgrounds as I could find who could contribute, because I literally sent them a message and said, I want you to write your story of 2020 and I need it next week. So these were the people who got back to me. They were action takers. And they're such incredible stories, and they've inspired so many people and helped women just by knowing we're not alone, and knowing that, tough things can happen, but you know what? Tough things have happened to other people too. And this is how they did it. So that's my first book, and it's called We Are Unbreakable: Raw, Real Stories of Resilience from Women in Nova Scotia in 2020. Wow. And my new book actually goes along with what we've been talking about repetition. So it's a self-love journal, and it's called Fierce and Fabulous, a self-love journal. Both of them are available on Amazon, but it goes through the things that I've used to try to get through the tough times. And it's like a journal that you're supposed to write in every day. And it has daily tools that you repeat. And then they become a habit, because after you do things enough times, they stick in that subconscious mind. So it's a lot about gratitude and kindness, and not just kindness to other people, but kindness to ourselves. So that book just came out. I just got my first copy of it on the weekend, and actually already gave that away. So I don't even have a physical copy to hold up and show you. But like I said, it's on Amazon, and it's called Fierce and Fabulous, a self-love journal.
Wow. And well, for one, congratulations. And it's, so with regards to the first one, it's so important, I think, for people to share their stories. Like social media is just full of everybody's putting on their best show, life's wonderful. But actually, when people are honest, nobody wants to do the vulnerable. It's like we don't want to almost admit it, right? When things are tough. But actually, they're the most powerful, because they're going to be people out there that, like you said, they think they're on their own. Mm-hmm. So it's so important for them to read a book like yours, to actually have that understanding that, no, they're not alone. There are other women that are going through these same things. And then you will resonate with certain stories.
Yes.
And again, that's the whole point of, attracting your tribe. People will resonate with you because, oh, wow, Karen went through that and look where she is now. Like, then you're the inspiration to so many. And then the second book, perfect. I mean, again, like we were saying earlier, nothing happens. You cannot change. If you're having 60 to 70,000 thoughts in a day, if you have one thought of, it's not going to make any difference. You cannot change your life from reading a book once, from watching a film once, from hearing anything like this once. It is only from the repetition. So journaling, we know there's so much research now how valuable that is. Because I suppose if we're living our lives on autopilot. If you want things to change, you've got to make a conscious decision, but a consistently do those things to create any change, because none of it's going to happen overnight. Just like, so I come from the fitness industry. So, it'd be like, somebody wanting to drop a couple of stone and they expect it to happen after the first workout. It's not going to happen. It will take 12 weeks of consistently going to the gym, of consistently looking at what you're eating, how much water you're drinking, all these things, how you're thinking and feeling, to actually create change. Why is it going to be any different? It's all linked, right? The mental, the physical, the spirit. We're talking about us as human beings. This is how we operate. Nothing will change from a one-time event. So how fantastic. So yeah, journaling is going to be everything. It's like a reminder to do these things rather than resorting back to our old habitual patterns, because we will.
Oh, we will, because that's easy, because it's I don't even like to call it our comfort zone, because it's usually not comfortable. It's our familiar zone. Yeah. And we will stay in that because that's what is familiar. And we need to consciously step out of that if we're going to grow as a person. And I always say, I can relate this to the fitness industry, because resilience is a muscle too. We have to work on it. We have to build it. And I have a really cool story about this, it doesn't happen overnight. So probably 11 years ago, I went to my first life coach, and I was that life coaches are stupid people. Like, I was that person for a long time. I thought, I don't need help. That's, your woo-woo stuff. I was that person that was like, that's too woo-woo for me. I don't need it. I finally went to a life coach when I really felt like my life was falling apart. And I'm like, somebody's got to help me. And she said to me, what are you doing to make all these horrible things happen in your life? And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm not doing anything. These people are doing these things to me and I have no control. And she goes, wait, we have control over everything. And she gave me a little postcard and she said, I want you to put this in your bathroom and I want you to read these words to yourself every single day. And I still have it in my bathroom, actually, like I said, 11 years later. And the words, first of all, it took me 2 years to be able to say these words. So nothing happens quickly, especially when you have those voices ingrained in your head. The words were, I deeply and completely love myself. And I could not say them. And I think all of our success, all of our resilience, all of our ability to get through whatever life throws at us is based on those words, that we love ourselves. And that's why I created the journal. And I share that tool in the journal, because if we don't love ourselves, we don't feel like we can do the hard things. We don't feel like we're worthy. We don't feel like we can be successful. And so that was all part of this journey that got me to where I am today. And I just want to share it with as many people as I can, because it was so powerful for me to be able to look at myself and go, I deeply and completely love myself.
And why do you think it was so hard? And again, I'd say you're not alone, right?
No.
And I'm not going to be, I'm a woman, so this is all I know, right? So I'm not talking about the guy. I'm just talking about in general. Women especially have a real problem with this. There's some kind of thing, I am not worthy. And, again, I did this thing a little while ago about affirmations. Affirmations by themselves. See, you worked it. So 2 years to even believe it. And again, the belief is just a thought you keep thinking consistently. So you force that into your brain, because, when we have that conscious affirmation or conscious goal, and it's not in alignment with our subconscious belief that we can achieve that goal, guess what? It's not going to happen unless they do what you did and kept going, and repetition and over time. And so I would always say to people, so flip it and just say things to yourself like, yeah, but wouldn't it be great when I am?
Yeah.
and then use your imagination to come at whatever that thing is, to find that, because it's all about how we feel. So really what you're saying is for 2 years, I mean, that's showing some resilience, right? And
Yeah.
for 2 years, you kept reading that thing. You're still having that negative self-talk saying, really?
Oh.
Who do you think you are? But over time, because you consistently did it, which is flipping amazing.
I consistently tried to do it, I have to say. Some days
Well,
I
you
couldn't
did
say
it.
it. Some days I
did
couldn't
it.
say it. Some days I would cry. Some days I would,
Right.
like, I couldn't look in the mirror and say it. So
But you did it.
yeah, it was a
That was your
journey.
resilience.
Yeah. And we all have the ability to do that with whatever it is. We just have to, tell ourselves that. And I like to tell people, and I taught this to the students that I did the speech with on the weekend, but we have to act like we're already where we want to be. So don't act like we can't get there. Act like we're already there, because what you tell your brain is what your brain believes. So if you tell your brain, I'm never going to do this, then you're never going to do it. But if you tell yourself, I already published a book, I already spoke in front of 5,000 people, I have this car, I have this house, whatever it is that you want or dream of having, tell yourself you've already done it. And vision boards, again, a lot of people think are woo-woo, but the same woman who gave me that tool, we did a vision board workshop with her. And, we literally cut things out of magazines and glued them on a piece of poster board. And I came home because I didn't believe in it. I thought, yeah, whatever, this is stupid. I put it in my closet in my office, and I cleaned my office out like a year ago. So 10 years later, every picture that I stuck on that board had come true. I had done or gotten all of the things, and I'd never looked at it again. But I put it out there. Now, I forgot I even did it. And I pulled it out and I was like, oh, wow, that's that thing I did. Wow, I have all this stuff now, or I've done all this stuff.
So imagine how much quicker you would have got there if you had it in somewhere, hang up somewhere where you would have seen it every day.
Or if I was writing it down every day.
There you go. So what it sounds like is that your second book is almost like you've had the results. You can then look back on what you did to achieve it, and now you have this formula to help others get there even quicker. Because what you just said there, I think, is the key. The key. When they talk about the secret, it's not about your thoughts. You've got to find a way of getting into that feeling place of having achieved it now, because our subconscious doesn't know time. We do, because we need it. We need it to figure things out, but subconscious only knows now. So when we always say, and I think this is what I got so wrong. I was all about, right, I've got to think and goals. Well, if I want something, then I'm actually telling myself that I don't have it. Right. So I'm starting that goal from a place of lack. So flipping it on its head and fight whatever you've got to do, right? So that vision board's fantastic advice for people to use whatever tools you've got to feel. Yeah, how would you feel? Which is why I suppose the gratitude, and, because you cannot feel negative thoughts if you're feeling gratitude at the same time, because the frequencies don't mix. So how would you would feel grateful, you would feel relief. So all those feelings that's why I think it's so important. What you said right there is the secret, is how do you feel like you've already achieved it? Yeah. And that does sound woo-woo to some people, but it is what it is, folks.
It works. I have a best-selling book, and hopefully this new one will be bestseller. It's number 3 in hot new releases for self-help.
Well, there you go.
So it's getting there. And if I get to the top in self-help, like, that's a big deal. So it's about making that happen. And I don't publish a book and say, this isn't going to be a bestseller. I publish a book and go, this is going to be a bestseller. And so far it's worked. So
there you go. So fantastic. So there you go. what an inspiration for somebody that's, been through all that you've been through. And it's obviously very, it's going to be very emotional. This is your children, people need to take stock and, be grateful for what you have, because there's always going to be somebody that's got it worse than you. Gratitude has got to be the number one. Come on, there's no matter what you're going through, there's something to feel grateful for.
Every single day, find something to be grateful for and find something to be happy about, because there is something every single day, no matter what you're going through. And I just want to go back a little bit to I'm going to have a best-selling book. That's not arrogant. It is not arrogant to say, I am going to do this incredible thing. It is you believing in yourself. And if other people don't believe in you, this is a popular thing that's being said all over the internet these days, but other people's opinions are none of your business. You do not live for other people's opinions. You live to do your best and live your dreams. So for you to say, I am going to be whatever that is not arrogant. It is you dreaming, and it is you programming your brain to believe that you can have it.
Love that. Why are we so hard on ourselves? Isn't it funny that it's almost like we've been brought up to not be
those
like
first
that,
7 years of our lives. Remember the first 7 years, people.
That's being selfish, or that's being arrogant, or that's being, don't blow your own trumpet. Why not? No, give yourself a pat on the back.
Exactly. Yeah. And if that's like the gift that we can give our kids is to believe in themselves. We are not giving them a gift when we try to hold them back from being incredible. We need them to fail. We need them to lose. We need them to realize that they can still do incredible things even when they fail. Yeah. And that's the greatest gift we can give our kids, is to teach them to be resilient. And like I said, we're not raising children, we're raising adults. And they're going to go out in this big bad world, and there's going to be hard things. And you need to give them the tools to deal with them. And you need to give them the tools to believe in themselves, even through the failures.
Right.
Because that's where we learn.
Thought about that. Yeah. That's a really, just, it's funny. The words we use can totally change how we think about things. Yeah, you're so right. We're not raising children. We're raising little adults. And why wouldn't we want the best for them? I mean, I get it. Parents aren't doing it to, well, maybe not all parents, but not all parents are doing it from, to be malicious. They're doing it because they want to protect, but it's all fear-based, right?
Yes, it is. It's very fear-based.
All fear-based. I've got to protect them because what if, or no, they can't do what they're passionate about because what if they're not going to make any money from that? They've got to do this. Nothing good is going to come from a decision you make from a fear-based position. But I understand that, not everybody learns this stuff, right? They're not aware.
No. Exactly. And that's why I'm trying to share these messages to make more people aware. Just think how much less mental health struggles we would have had through COVID if we were not fearful of it. If we did not program our kids to be scared of it.
Look.
And so that's just one example.
My own children actually had to remind me, because I've always been, I think I'm always positive, and it did affect me in the beginning. I'd never watched the news, and I brought them up saying, don't watch the news. And they actually came to me in that sort of first bit going, Mum, because they could see my energy dropping, right? And I was in a fearful place because I had asthma, my daughter had, so I was in the beginning. And it was actually them that came to me and said, Mum, you always told us not to watch the news because it's negative. And I would sit there and go, but.
Yeah, I did the same thing.
And then it was like, oh my goodness. Number one, thank goodness you have been listening to me all these years. And wow, I've just resorted back to my old habit patterns. And oh my goodness, you're so right. We do not have a TV in this house anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The TV broke down the following Christmas, and I decided not to replace it. We have a project. We can watch Prime and Netflix. I can watch things.
Same here.
But no terrestrial TV.
No.
So I can't hear it.
Yeah.
Regardless.
And you don't have to watch the commercials.
No.
And you don't have to see the little headlines that this is coming up on the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't have it, even if, you can't miss anything important because somebody will say something. Someone could complain about it on Facebook.
Right. Yes.
You can't totally avoid it, but I cannot actually explain the difference between that first year going up to that Christmas and the last year. Massive. Mm-hmm. Massive. So what you've just said right there is, it is everything. It's getting out of that fear-based. People probably think, Karen just lives in a bubble. You know what? I'm happy in my bubble.
Yeah. And people probably think that about me too, but we need to be in a bubble. You need to protect your own energy. You need to be real. There are dangers, there are things, but you educate yourself on how to deal with them. And you can't worry about everything that everybody else is doing.
No.
You have to focus on what is real for your life, what is affecting your life. And I've had friends that get upset, just an example. So somebody's spouse is cheating on them. And they're like, oh my gosh, aren't you mad at them? And I'm like, no, it has nothing to do with my life. That is their choice. And I'm not letting their energy affect my life. So we can't always protect ourselves from the information that we get, but we can protect ourselves from the energy that we give it and from how we react to it. And we need to control that. Because everything is not our problem.
It's not. And it just goes back to what you said right at the beginning. It's about, yes, we can have certain reactions. And that's okay, because some of the self-development, always, it's not real. We are human, and it is okay to have these emotions. But like you said right at the beginning about just not, just don't stay there too long.
Don't live there.
Don't get caught there. Don't get stuck there. Allow it to process and go through, and then get yourself back up. It's about what we're doing, what we're feeling consistently. So going again back to what your whole book is about, is about how what we're thinking and feeling consistently on a daily basis is affecting our lives. And I think if people understood that you know what, you getting angry about that person having an affair, is it affecting them? No, it's going to affect you.
Yes.
It's like drinking poison, expecting them to get ill.
Right. And I say one of the other really important tools of being resilient is feeling the feelings, because oftentimes we try to bottle it all up and tell everybody we're fine. But in order to be resilient, you need to actually acknowledge your feeling and move through it. You can't, just hit the wall. It doesn't help. You need to figure out how to get through the wall, around the wall. And that's by feeling it. It's by saying, I am angry. This upset me, and move on and figure out how to shift that voice into something positive. So naturally, when all that stuff happened with my ex-husband, it was a lot. But I figured out how to get through it and bring my kids through it, because I just said, I need my kids to be good humans. And you see so many kids who have been through tough times and make really poor choices. Yeah. And I'm like, this is not what you guys get to do. Yep. This is crappy. This is really hard, but you still don't get to do bad things. You still don't get to make poor choices. You are still going to finish school. So my daughter, I didn't get to tell much of her story, but my oldest daughter, who had been abused, the next year, not even a few months later, her lung collapsed at school. She was 14 when her lung collapsed at school one day. She almost had to have lung surgery, but it healed 8 hours before the surgery was scheduled. The following year, when she was 15, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. Well, she went on to graduate from high school with $30,000 in scholarships, high honors, and has put herself through college, has bought her own car, bought a house, and has an incredible job and is doing so well.
Wow.
So it's about giving them those tools and
That's come
yourself.
from you. That's come from you. You must feel incredibly proud of both your children, but also, you deserve a big pat on the back, because without you, they would have been in a very different place, from a mindset issue. So look, Karen, thank you so much for your time. I could
Thank you.
go on all day talking to you. I think it's so important for people out there. So if you like what you hear, please get in touch. Go and get a book on Amazon. So to the listeners, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you all next week with a Coffee with Karen.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.